Hey guys, welcome back. James from Discord here again, and we're just going to have a look at mixing. Now, mixing is it's a difficult one to teach people or to explain how you do it, because the fact is, every time you mix a track, it's going to be completely different from the last one. And also, for us to do it, we actually tend to do most of our mixing as we're going. That's not kind of the approved method, maybe, but that's probably true about a lot of what we do. We're just only interested in whether we're happy with the product at the end, and we generally are with our methods. So you may well find that the way we do stuff doesn't work for you, and you find your own way. That's great. That's how it should be. So like I say, we tend to do a lot of our mixing whilst we're writing. A lot of people might find that they prefer to kind of focus on the technical side once they're done with the creative side. But to be honest, for us, they're kind of the same thing. The creative and the technical side are kind of just, they're just one and the same thing. So really, the easiest way. So we've already, you can see we've already grouped everything. We've kind of been doing that as we go. That makes life a lot easier when you're just mixing stuff. So really, at its most basic, you're just looking at getting the levels right, and also removing frequencies that are clashing, or just frequencies that don't need to be there in certain sounds. So for example, let's go on to the vocal chop. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add an EQ after the sidechains here. So this is on the group. So this is all of the both layers and the vocal synth. So I'm EQing all of that together now. So just grab an EQ. And for starters, I know that the 808 is taking up at least to about 100, if not more, like 150 to 200. So basically, this vocal chop does not need to have loads of low end on it. So I know I can do that without even listening, and then I'll listen and see how much can I actually get away with cutting, and does it still sound, does it still work? So let's put the 808s in. So that seems too much, it's quite thin. And what you can also do with most sounds, you can roll off the very high end as well. Generally, it's really only, again, this is my rules, not everyone else's rules. Generally, I only want the cymbals and hi-hats and stuff to be at the very high end, above something like 13 or maybe even lower, but that's generally where we tend to go. So we just roll off everything above about 13 kilohertz, and that goes for all the synth groups. Vocals will leave because they might have some sibilance and brightness that you want to keep, but that would be the same for the bass hits as well. Because then you end up with that space at the top of your track for the cymbals and the hi-hats to really sort of cut through and give you that nice sheen on top. So that's, And also another thing we will do is there's a really great mode on here. What's it called? Audition mode. So basically, if you select this on the EQ and then you select and hold one of the nodes and either add gain or reduce the gain, it will solo that band, and you'll only hear what you've got selected at that moment, which is really, really useful for finding those kind of ringy, nasty resonances that kind of just scream through your track and basically ruin it and sound harsh. We often find we end up cutting around 2.5k, 3k, which is kind of, I don't know if it's a urban myth or a lie or just something someone told me that they made up. But I heard that basically that around 2.5k, 3k is the same frequency as a baby's cry. So obviously you know how that sounds and you don't want to hear too much of it. And it's also the frequency where our ears are most receptive. So what that means is you don't need as much of it as you do other frequencies, because your ears are naturally more receptive to it anyway. So you can often find you can just create a bit more space in the mix just by losing a bit of that harshness around 2.5, 3k straight off. So let's just have a look at this. There's definitely like that whistle there. So I feel like we could definitely stand to lose some of that. And it's just, all it's going to do is just let, you know, other sounds take up that space if they need to, and just make the track less harsh on your ears overall. So it's really small things like that, like going through and finding frequencies that aren't, you know, that hurt your ears, basically. You know, when you don't want to mix too loud, but obviously you do want to listen to the tune loud. And if it sounds really harsh and horrible when it's loud, then imagine what it's going to sound like in a club. It's just going to hurt people. So if you can find those frequencies and remove them, then you should go for it. So same thing with the vocal, really. I just want to kind of find if there's any harsh frequencies that are kind of painful to listen to. I've got a feeling they're going to be, because the thing is, obviously we're actually using this vocal is the same sound as this vocal chop, so chances are around the same areas we're going to have the similar frequency problems. So here you're at, straight away that horrible whistle, which, you know, it isn't there if you move it around. Oh yeah, that's nasty. So yeah, we'll just cut that away, and that's the kind of thing you can spend, like, this is a 15-minute video, or however long this video is. You know, you could spend, I mean, some people will spend days and days and days doing this. We don't have the patience for that, and we find that we can get the results as good as we need them to be by just spending maybe a day on a track once it's finished, just trying to find those sort of harsh frequencies that are not adding anything. You know, that in fact, if anything, they're making it worse by being there. So we'll just gradually go through each track and find those sort of nasty frequencies that we don't want, and get rid of them. And again, you know, like I said, with everything, so with these bass hits, obviously the bass hits are going to need a bit more low end, because they are low end sounds. So we're not going to cut them. I'm not going to roll the low off necessarily, but again, I can roll off the high to about 13k, because they don't need high end on these sounds. So that's, yeah, another one there. Yeah, so I mean, same again with the synths group. I'm just going to throw an EQ on there, and I'll just cut at 13. This is through, you know, a long time of like trial and error and this working. I'm not just kind of doing it without any thought at all. It's just that I've done it so many times now that it is second nature. But it's the kind of thing that you'll learn, and you'll learn your own techniques for doing this the longer you're writing tunes. So it's more just a starting point, really. And I think that'll probably do it for the mix on this one. Like, we will you know, obviously we can't go through the entire mixing process because with every track, like I say, it's going to be different, and there's going to be different sounds that are causing different problems. And you might find that every time it gets to the last bit of the build up, because you've got everything kind of, you know, getting louder and getting higher and, you know, getting noisier, you get this really nasty mush. So you want to take out some of the frequencies that are clashing with each other so that everything can still be heard and not kind of just turn into a big mush. But yeah, I think that's kind of showing you the basic processes for what we do. We also tend to have, so without, obviously we haven't got the mastering chain on at the moment, so we tend to mix relatively quiet. So you can see this is at -10. These are all down pretty low, all of these groups. So it means that I find it makes life easier. I find I don't have to do nearly as much work at the end of the mix, at the end of the track, mixing it down, if I just keep everything generally fairly quiet. So I'm not constantly turning everything up to battle the other sound that I've just added and things like that. You know, it helps quite a lot to just start, you know, our preset Ableton set, you know, the drum bus is always at all the groups that we've got loaded are all at -10 to start with, so that straight away you're working from you're going to have a lot of headroom at the end, basically, which is obviously really important. So yeah, I think that'll do it for mixing. If you come back in the next one, we're just going to run through how we master our tracks. Again, it's not the only way to do it, but it's how we do it, and it definitely works for us. So hopefully you can get some use out of it. So I hope you enjoyed that, and we'll see you in the next video.
If you like this course, why not head over to sonicacademy.com, where we have hundreds of complete track builds in every genre imaginable, including all the project files and samples. You'll also find tutorials on plugins and synths, mixing and mastering, over 250 tech tips, artist interviews, along with our award-winning plugins, samples and preset packs.